Lift big boss, bitch, I'm dying, big boss.
Big boss gang gang.
Lift big boss, bitch, I'm dying, big boss.
Ay.
Lift big boss, bitch, I'm dying, big boss.
Big boss gang.
Snake, you know who that is?
You're kidding, right? It's Mario.
Mario made his first appearance in 1981.
Man, Snake is like a fucking celebrity now. Too bad he's fucking dead. So at this point, the Japanese games industry had pretty much crashed. Square was floundering and failing with engines. Smaller studios like Tecmo nearly closed up shop. Capcom was cynically outsourcing all of their shit. And in short, they were pretty much having an identity crisis. Japanese audiences were drifting to phones and handhelds, boasting free gacha and arcade-style games and cheaply made VNs sold at corner shops for the aging PSP, and the West was firmly into
Yeah, American man guy. So manly man guy men.
Or at least, so they thought. Truthfully, there was always a huge group of weebs, nerds, and cool kids who much preferred the weird experimental porcelain-skinned games from the Japanland. Regardless of how you look at it though, it didn't seem like Konami was all too excited to have another long-winded, troubled big money dev cycle on their hands with all the filler arcade that could entail. And so, MGS4 was to be made, because of course it would, but as a cheaper PSP title. At the same time, the upcoming 3DS was to get some MGS-themed support too, you know, maybe like a remake perhaps, similar to what Ninty had gotten before. And they would also focus on more mobile games, with entire Konami teams, employees, and divisions being torn apart, demoted, and reformed for optimal gacha garbage. Anyway, as a PSP game, Kojima would look towards the spin-offs for inspo. Acid? Slow, tedious, stylized, but dull? No. Portable ops? Perfect for addictive, short-burst, mission-based action randomness? Also stylized, but with cheaper cutscene tech? Well, yeah, why not? And so, MGS5 became more and more like Portable Ops 2, building upon the same gameplay, themes, and story, but also it would be renamed. Still canon, for sure, but no MGS5 of mine would ever be subjected to this format. Ha! Beating up boys like a solid boss, leading his very own band of anime terrorists like a big liquid. It's Big Boss. Or Vic Boss, or just Snake, I guess. Now leaning on what he learned in Ops to form his own mercenary militia, doing the odd job. Real-world ties is happening, you see, as a Costa Rican man comes and beckons to the Snake to beat the American warmen that muscled in on his country. He also has a girl with him.
She's only a child. 16 years old. They did terrible things to her, but somehow she managed to escape.
Who you can then immediately pervert.
God. She's huérfana.
This will become a theme. And so, Snake dicks around Costa Rica to do the war. However, things might not be as they seem. Being that you can't pause cutscenes for some fucking reason, which makes jotting down shit like this pretty fucking annoying. But also because the American warmen are actually CIA backed, which is weird, and also because the Costa Rican man is actually KGB and simply in it to win it and turn the Sliver, aka the Dingleberry, aka Central America, into a Russian-run communist state. Oh, and the girls also heard the boss's voice off in the woods as well. But hey, there's a new cast and everything. Three's characters were retroactively fucked over in 4, so they kinda needed a band of new fuckos to fuck over once more. There's Kazuhiro Miller. Snake met him on a mission once off camera and saved his life, so now he's indebted to him, serving as his direct right-hand man, resident romantic, and lover of yapping on about bullshit only tenuously related to the mission. He's basically a Kojima mouthpiece, let's be fair.
Recording atmospheric noises is an exhilarating art. There's nothing like capturing the real world in action on tape. It's just like taking pictures with a camera, only with a microphone instead of a viewfinder.
Sure.
There's Paz, aka the child, aka fucker in the box, it's fine, don't worry about it, who serves as an expert on the local locales, history and politics, as well as being a proper beacon of hope, forever optimistic and fondly reminiscing about the better times she knows her country has had.
I'm surprised the construction money didn't dry up the way things were going.
Actually, it did, but the bananas helped complete it, so they say.
You mean the energy the workers got from eating bananas? I suppose they do have plenty of vitamins and...
No. I meant the money they got to finish it came from exporting bananas.
Oh.
There's Chico and Amanda, the local freedom fighters whose conflict inevitably leads them to teaming up with El Snake, with at least one of them serving as the cute girl stationed at the base giving intel on the lay of the land, and the lay of the lays, being that you can perv on her as well while she's emptying out her heart. She's also a combat expert, by the way, cluing you in on which weapons or tactics are best for the mission at hand, and Chico is the kid boy man-child kid man. So, like, insecure as fuck, overly protective because anime, but also still definitely a kid who believes in monsters and shit. And we all know those aren't real. Then there's also Yui, aka Otacon's dad, aka Hot Wheels, aka the guy building the death machines, aka literally just Otacon verbatim. You know, heart of gold, always there for you, bit of a dweebo, awkwardly in love, sad background, you know the drill. Though I will say that I really like the idea of the guy who invented Metal Gears, or at least made the first ones, being someone born without the ability to walk. Dude has this very personal, vetted interest in making mechanical legs good. Not to mention, the reason for his legs being that way is because his daddy got his jizz nuked in the Manhattan Project.
Doc.
I can't walk.
What?
My spine isn't shaped like everybody else's. I can't move my lower body. So I've never taken a single step, not since I was born.
What's that got to do with your dad being in the Manhattan Project?
As a result of his research, my father was exposed to high doses of radiation. It can't be a coincidence that my chromosomes are messed up.
That's a really nice way to tie up the whole Otacon nuke themes without outweighing shit MGS4 style. Plus, also, besides, now that I think about it, a tank with legs makes so much more sense with it being developed specifically for Costa Rica's environment. Jungles, rocky mountains, swampy rivers. It's like in past MGS games, the designs were mostly just cool looking, and while they were justified, you could very easily knock down most of the logic by simply asking why they all needed legs. But in a country this dense, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, but why does Peace Walker need to walk on two legs? I think treads would be good enough.
You'd be wrong. As you know, the terrain in Central America is rugged and complex, especially along the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. You've got jungles, swamps, mountains, and the only way to get across all that terrain, no matter how rugged, is on legs.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be tough to cross a swamp, even on legs?
It wasn't easy, that's for sure. The reason we picked Costa Rica as a proving ground is because we can test it on every type of terrain.
And lastly, there's Cecile, Strangelove, and Hot Goldman. Jesus Christ, that fucking name. Ceci is a hot French lady who you find in the middle of the jungle half naked because... well, she a bird lady who was held captive by the enemies, so she knows stuff about shit. You know, mainly about Dr. Strangelove, who took care of her for a while in a not at all sexual way, no sir.
You mean another woman?
My! Aren't we curious about the women and as a women? You want to hear the terrible things she tried to do to me?
That's not what I meant.
It's all right. You can be honest.
So, you and Cecile seem to be enjoying yourselves back at that lab.
What are you insinuating? I only kept her because I didn't want our secret to be known.
And the personal baths? You could have left her in there alone and locked the door from the outside.
Yes, that, well...
she's gay, you see, which, blatantly dude fantasy-driven fan service aside, is quite remarkable given that Japan is still weird about that shit, and that even Kojima himself was far less than mature with LGBT stuff in the past. Here, it's openly discussed in a down-to-earth manner, not made fun of or stereotyped much at all, and you get to see like the entire cast react to it and see Cecile ponder shit. It's surprisingly woke for what it is. From hating on biogenders to a perfectly normal depiction of a lesbian woman. I'm proud of you, Hideo. Mwah. Oh, and the hot cold child is the Batman who must be stopped because bad. You do that, as stated, through a mission-based structure similar to Portable Ops, in that you assign various boy units to various boy units based on their stats, develop weapons, cop boys, and get research. Big difference being, in this case, is that shit's streamlined to fuck. Menus is easy to use now, stats are much more clearly observable, and where something like weapons and items development is way more complicated, allowing you to handpick specific builds and projects, see which things are gradually getting the fix, and even upgrade existing shits. You get these very intuitive timers and percentages easily telling you exactly what do. Your ever-growing research team will also come up with new shit, and you yourself can track out to find or stumble across new design documents. Just even on this aspect alone, things are already designed in such a way where there's just the right amount of involvement without things ever getting too grindy or managey. You no longer have to read reports, for example, or look at the right area on the map without any other indicators. Instead, the side ops are clearly listed in this neatly overseeable list with instructions following in tow, and can involve everything from cop this boy, / defeat the big thing, / do thing before timer, to turret sections, dragon battles, ghost hunting, bomb defusal, dates, sabotage, theft, and photography missions. Additionally, you also need to keep food levels above 100% to keep morale good and performance high. The more men's, the more food needed, but also the more of them one can assign to the mess hall to keep shit 100. And hey, there's even a sickbay which works in a similar way, gradually healing up boys more betterer the more betterer boys you boy. And aside from the more normal shit like that, you can also build your own Metal Gear by collecting parts from the robo-bosses you beat, only to then be able to send it out to war along with the men's and tanks and shit what you can steal too, all in order to live big boss, die big boss. And also to get like a ton of extra goodies and big beefy boys who will apply to your army because they're just so impressed. Said bosses, by the way, are just that. Once again, there's no anime terrorists. Hell, if anything, that's what you are now. And instead, you'll find big mechs, big tanks, big units, big drones, and huge fuck-off mobile fortresses one can farm parts from and or just take with wholesale. They don't really utilize anything in the way of full-on gimmicks, nor do they really require a whole lot of hardcore tactics outside of boasting some weak spots, but what they do have is full-on fucking carnage. They're all incredibly tough, heavy, fast, crazy, and wild, with massive explosions, elaborate attack patterns, with missiles and gun turrets and drones and shit. And because you have your own militia now, you'll be packing quite the heavy artillery too. So, while they might lack personality, there are loads of them. Man, they're all so far too much fun to fuck with for me to really want to give a shit either way. Overall, there's just a really great flow to it. You unlock tons of new shit after each mission, cop loads of boys and items during every mission, and manage all of it in a snappy, over in a few seconds fashion, back at base. Basically, there's always some type of gameplay happening. Even during the most base of missions, development timers will still be counting down, war boys will be gunning down tanks for you, and everything you find will end up contributing something to the satisfying greater whole. Hell, it literally has its own in-game achievement system rewarding you with additional stuff for, say, non-lethaling a certain amount of guards, or for being a headshot god. It's the already fun ops made more rewarding and streamlined, yet also far more complicated and engaging in every single way. The only downside to it is that the quick and easy micromanagement does start to feel a bit repetitive as the game progresses. I mean, having to manually check your fight guys after every mission, or having to click past a fuck bunch of upgrades all saying, "Skill increased due to being in combat unit." Like, yeah bro, I fucking get it. Stuff like that definitely could have been automated or summarized, but even then, on the dick flip, things may not have felt as rewardingly involving if it was, so it's kind of a necessary evil in that sense. The controls and base gameplay, anyway, are very detailed and smooth, taking a lot from 3's complexity but mixing it with 4's smoothixity. You can duck walk again, for one. CQC is also a big dicking combo fest now, seeing you chain motherfuckers and chuck them into each other as you judo, choke, interrogate, or beat them up old-fashioned style. The camo is also around still, though much less prevalent, being that you pick a suit pre-mish, and also you can do this. The level design, in any case, is much in the vein of 3, so very compact, linear, option and side route heavy, but with a clear set-piece based Snake Man's Guardmans with less Lego cause no cones, or at least not until the end of the game, and more sound-based, hence why the duck walk. Unlike 4 though, this is very much a stealth game first and foremost. Combat is to be avoided unless the mission clearly states otherwise, and generally, we once again default to mindlessly tranking about 80% of all dudes. In fact, it is encouraged, as you need to cop these boys somehow. However, it's a bit less draggy now. The Fulton recovery system is a real-ass thing that exists in real life and needs to be seen to be believed. Dunno if it was ever intended to be used so liberally, but it sure as shit beats having to slowly pull motherfuckers across half the stage, that's for sure.
Wait, Kaz. Something doesn't make sense about this whole process.
This again.
Well, normally, Fulton recovery is for when you're using fixed-wing aircraft. With a helicopter, isn't it simpler to land and pick up directly?
Listen, Snake. You're going to be calling for recoveries repeatedly throughout your mission. We want to keep the risk of taking enemy fire to a minimum. The best way to get that done is to do the recovery in a high-speed flyby. That's what the Fulton surface-to-air recovery system is for.
Uh-huh. What's the real reason?
Helicopters are cheaper.
Items are also automatically shipped off the mother base, so you don't need to switch to a courier guy just to pick them up either, and overall the game's just a dreamy, buttery dream to play. The levels will even have their own little themes or gimmicks as well, mainly reusing ideas from past titles in new context, but also by subverting some of it by, like, say, having guards use camo against you for once, actually being legit well hidden. And there's always that initial intrigue of having to figure out what a level might throw at you as well, or how it might do just that. So, while 3 may have infinitely more complexities in its base moveset, I'd still consider this the series its gameplay peak at this current point in time, simply because of how much there is to do. Sure, past games may have had better levels, but they didn't have you bringing dudes back to life by CPR sucking ghosts inside of them, nor did they have the super satisfying structure tying it all together.
Meow. Meow. Meow, meow, meow.
Wow. I have no idea what you're saying.
While this shit was being fine-tuned over at Koji Pro, a team all the way in Spain called Mercury's team was working on a brand new Castlevania game. Thing is, because Logic, a franchise almost entirely running on comparatively cheap handheld games, was to swap places with Metal Gear and be the big console release of the year. Not sure why, but the Gulags are a place of little logic, so no surprises there. In either case, as expected and because of course, things weren't going too hot, as they were making multiple prototypes all ripping off different successful franchises. As things were going, it would either end up as a hollow gumbo game or a straight up rip-off of something far greater, so Konami asked them to halt development and come on over to show what they had. Upon which, titular meeting, Kojima stood up and said, "Yeah." Thus now making him the director, flying back and forth between Spain and Japan, giving wee pointers as he go, and turning it into a hollow gumbo game all the same. Just one with his name on the box, guaranteeing sales. Because of this, though, big parts of Peace Walker's development were left in the hands of its 3 producers, as well as large parts of the writing being done by Shujo all alone. And so, the plot feels a fair bit more backgroundy. Like, yeah, it keeps MGS4's tradition of big leaps and logicless logic, but tonally it's a fair bit more spin-off-y, with a plot that comes across as thin and inconsequential, while in truth not being that at all. You can see that from, for instance, the entirely original cast. I mean, yeah, maybe these people will be super relevant in a later game, or maybe they're just here as one-offs. At this point, in either case, it feels like the game is trying to clean slate shit as much as possible, carrying over mostly only themes and that shit about the boss, which gets explained in a text blurb right near the start for a reason. I guess it does bear saying that Kojima's team falling apart isn't the sole reason for this game's background-heavy posture, as, you see, MGS4 came with a downloadable database to bring people up to speed who weren't familiar with the other games to maximize sales, and I really wouldn't be surprised if in this climate Konami would have been like, no, on the heavy sequel baggage, and perhaps even the number as to make it seem more like a standalone game okay to buy for everybody. Who knows, honestly. What I do know, though, is that the real-world ties are back in full force. I already mentioned the Fulton being a real obscure thing, similar to the fly ships in MGS3, and unlike 4, it also takes place in legit actual places that involve mentions of legit actual people. Not sure if the giant flying Doom drones are accurate, but shit adds personality, which it already has in spades as well. There's plenty of one-liners and lines that flow like poetry. The Ashley Wood cutscenes, now with budget, also look fucking great, and its team of 5 composers, with Hideo and Williams being mysteriously absent, did a great job rounding it all off in one salaciously watchable pie. It's just that the actual content of this context is a bit lacking. Shit's very heavily expository for a start, with Kaz often interjecting just to explain shit real quick, and Cult Man Villain Man is literally only monologuing his plans and absolutely nothing else. Not to mention Yui's introduction, which pretty much explains the entire story cut and dry, some of the conversational writing also feeling very stiff and or overtly rambly and long-winded police knot style, which I must say is likely a product of Fukushima no longer writing the banter. And thematically, things are also far less than subtle. Though, I should mention that it does a great job with its Caribbean coast aesthetic. You got the brightest beaches with color-graded sand that goes beautifully dark near the water.
There's no one around. Why not try some shooting practice?
Dense, thick bush with the saturatedest of greens, palm trees on wazoo, and beautifully beefy bloom keeping things musky. The puddles as well will have this very vibrant, almost rust-like color to them, as lakes is tumultuous and brown because of all the mud flowing in. However, it's not stereotypically tropical. The skies aren't afraid of getting grey. Buildings are quite partial to being dumpy.
The train terminal is on the other side of the coffee factory. Head for the factory first.
And the jungles seem about as swamp crotchy as they would be IRL. It's not a postcard. Things be pretty for sure, but we are still in a war zone, and I'd say that it hits that contrast gracefully. All areas, for example, are very small, compact, claustrophobic, and linear. This is likely due to its PSP-ness not lending itself too well to very large areas, lest you pull a big empty a la Birth by Sleep. But it still helps, and for a PSP game it also looks pretty fucking great. They were able to reuse assets and effects from MGS2 and 3 with the smoky, musky fog puffs and big chunky subtropical raindrops of 2's tanker, and the bugs, grass, plants, animals, and rickety old fences returning from 3. Of course, they also had to make loads of new flora and fauna, and especially some buildings specific to this region too. The research team dedicated specifically to this country and its history alone was fucking massive, which shows in its abandoned banana plantage turned trap house, sporting rusted but still colorful signs of a bygone time, clashing heavily with the stinky, rotting, rat and flies infested banana basins below them. The impoverished towns, emptied and occupied in war, the big industrial coffee factories with harsh and natural colors, once providing the main source of income now used by the military for weapons development, the Mayan ruins turned research centers, and the turbo-dense jungles now laden with guards all say loads about this country. Plus, you really only have to look at the final level to see that maybe this game is trying to tell you something. again, shit's pretty, but it has this sense of it being defiled about it too. Damaged and exhausted by constant wars, drugs, poverty, colonialism, and shitty oligarchs industrializing shit at the cost of the natives. Just on its own, visually, it's already a great commentary on how fucked over countries like Costa Rica and really all of Middle and South America are at the hands of the US and its own corrupt motherfuckers, but it is made extra special by how much our brand new cast has to say about it. In between missions, you can listen to hours upon hours of tape recordings featuring the main cast talking about literally anything from technical specifics regarding each mission to the simple goings-on at Mother Base.
Hey Snake, girls are funny, you know? You can never tell what they're thinking. They're always doing their own thing. Maybe they really are different from us men.
What's this about now?
These are pretty much on MGS3 level, if not for a bit less elegant and rambly police not style, but comfy and podcasty all the same. And pretty fucking important to fleshing out our characters as well. Cause without the tapes, for example, is just the info guy who Snake met off screen unless you check the Japanese-only audio drama, but with tapes, he is your best buddy through thick and thicker.
A box big enough to hold me and my buddy. These are fine times we live in, hey Kaz?
Yeah, sure, boss.
And Cecile, without the tapes, is just a pretty naked lady, but with tapes, she is a pretty naked lady who's caught the eye of Strangelove and Kaz. But then Yui also has a crush on Strangelove, for which she gives no shits, for she is lesbian. But then Cecile isn't exactly down with the doctor either, for she is no lesbian. And all of a sudden, you have this entire meme-worthy love triangle playing out, with fucking Kaz constantly busting into Cecile's tapes, which never happens for any of the other character-specific tapes.
Kojima is God. Cecile's name is a message. I don't believe it. Kojima is God. Kojima is God.
Kaz.
This is real dialogue in a real video game. Essentially, these tapes give context to things you wouldn't really even think needed it, like giving reasons for the goddamn logo to look like what it do.
The MSF seal is patterned after Pangea, the supercontinent from 250 million years ago. Back then, the whole world was one landmass, one world. No gaps, no rifts.
Our strength will take us back there.
As I said as well, though, the writing isn't quite as good as it was in 3, with some of the jokes not landing or back and forths feeling unnatural, but I don't think that really matters by the time you end up forming a monsters and ghost hunting squad with Chico, or when Paz here and some of the others start spouting all of the all-caps vast amounts of research that went into Costa Rica's history. To me, that's a big floppy pengus slapped right into the face of anyone who assumed Kojima isn't the real writer because MGS4 had a lot of bullshit in it. Like, yeah, Kojima's leash was loosened, sadly, but that doesn't mean that the banter isn't consistent in tone with stuff found even all the way back in Snatcher. He's definitely as hands-on in the script as the not entirely a real thing author label would imply, and rightfully deserves credit for it.
Aldea de los Despiertos means Village of the Awake.
Weird name.
But anyway, it continues what Op set out to do thematically. You know, live big boss, bitch, I'm dying, big boss. Dude's a leader now, you see, inspiring the troops to do troopy things and having its gameplay be appropriate for said things. Though, unlike Ops, where it was more of a subtle theme to set up Gene as a villain, it's something we're blatantly going to shove up your ass now.
Stay away! Don't touch me! Get away!
So I hear Amanda mistook you for Che Guevara, Snake. That's not too bad, huh?
Yeah, right. I'm not even worthy of polishing his boots.
In my promo art video, I mentioned how Shinkawa's art had this Che Guevara-esque silhouetted line-based style to it that made shit proper hero-y, but I said that not knowing that P-dubs would pull all of this shit. Snake constantly gets mistaken for Che, which, yeah, I get it. Like, both him and Snack were scruffy, bearded militiamen traveling the world to lend their services to many a rebellion, and on the real, the procure on-site / fuck around to get by gameplay of the series as a whole has always been very similar in theory to guerrilla warfare. Using cigarettes to expose traps, chucking animals at people, distracting a boy with sound so one can ambush. The glove certainly fits, so while the comparison isn't inept, it's still not really subtle in how it's made. I mean, what's next? Giving Snake devil horns to symbolize the duality of war? Ha! What it does do, though, as stated, is tie its themes into its characters and locations pretty well. I mean, revolutionaries are often painted as heroes, but, you know, they need to pay the bills too. Feed their people especially, and so the father and leader of Chico and Amanda also had set up drug trade routes to North America, as well as running the banana trap of previous mention, which took a toll on the both of them, mentally in ways that they both discuss, like a lot, but also physically, given that Chico got tortured so that they could get the roots out of him. Of course, Vich Cheek rescues him, giving Cheek the old lecture on what it means to be a soldier and what it's like to move on, thus making Chico the first official gnome.
What's that?
Señor Serpiente, ¿por qué nos debe lastimar tanto?
I fuck with that shit big time, as it adds weight to the gnomage of past games without it going for some contrived MGS4 level bullshit like the first mother-based child soldier was actually Raiden or Liquid or some bullshit like that. Like, no, fuck off, give it its own meaning. Don't clusterfuck it. Which I'm glad that they didn't, as now in terms of its themes, characters, and gameplay integration of both, Peace Walker is rock fucking solid. It's just that if there is any reason for people to dog on this game, it's because of the actual main plot being a bit, What this game is about is a CIA man called Hot Coldman trying to set up a nuclear deterrent. You know, the idea that if we can all destroy the world, no one will attempt shit because no one actually wants to destroy the world. However, how he wants to do that is by making an absolutely 100% fail-safe world fucker, i.e. this giant robot called Peace Walker. It's all explained in big detail and how it works, and it's a legit well thought out plan that certainly sounds believable enough, but the big downside, aside from it being a world ender, is that to launch it, one must launch a nuke first to prove its effectiveness, so to say. And so that's why he needs to be stopped. But also just because Snake is getting paid to do this by the man with the robot arm from the beginning. Anyway, this launcher needs an AI, and this AI is built by Dr. Strangelove, who used to fancy the boss who what Snake killed in 3. And so, because of that, she up and turned the AI into a recreation of the boss in order to make the AI like perfect and smart, but also to bring her back because love, but also just to really fuck over Snake's mind a whole bunch. I'm not joking. What also doesn't help is that Hot Coldman is a complete waste of space. He just as well could have not been there and have just Strangelove be the villain. Dude doesn't really add anything outside of the odd monologue of epic exposition. Still, he does his thing, but you stop him and then the AI boss got dead, only oops, Fist Daddy was actually evil all along, as it was all part of his plan, and so you put him in jail. And then enter this weird-ass story arc in which you spent hours floundering around in side missions as you keep the motherfucker caged up until, finally, Boz also reveals herself to be evil too, as she actually works for Zero and his new gang Cypher, who are trying to set up the AI patriots of the game's future past. Only to do so, they needed to get rid of Snake because blah blah blah, thorn in our side, and a big thing I want you to take away from the game's mixed writing qualities, this retrospective, and the direction that the Metal Gear series is going to take going forward is that creativity is always a combination of decisions and compromises. I want this to be this way because, or this ended up this way because, and without full access to the full story and the brains of those involved, it is often hard to establish what's what. But what you need to remember here is that said because will always follow with a reason. A reason one should not easily discard as it is dumb, because thought is never stupid.
We DNA test your dog's poop to make sure you're not letting your dog poop outside.
Okay, maybe sometimes it is, but what I'm saying is that in a series like this, with so much creative talent backing it, so many corporate issues, and so much to say for itself, the reason will almost never be that simple. You cannot like it, of course, but I will, at the very least, attempt to find said reason. So, why does Peace Walker end with a 16-year-old half-naked girl stealing a giant robot to J-pop music? Well, this likely has to do with two things. A, Hideo being Hideo, and Konami being Konami. Thing is that the dude got shat on for including too many adult themes, and a lot of them actually had to get cut out. About which he had this to say. There's a tolerance for fantasy games, but for games where you show war or real violence between people, you apparently can't complain about anything. With this, it seems impossible to communicate something through games. And so I'm thinking that this might be a jab, making things fantasy, essentially, instead of whatever he wanted. And B, there's the game's lull. You see, and as I said, once you beat Pisswasser and hold Handman captive, the plot more or less ends. Though you don't enter the post-game, as instead you enter the holy shit, this game's amazing, look at all this game, in which most of the cool shit happens, like the talking cats, dragons, the ghost hunting, holding up dudes with a banana, fucking the child, and loads of extra character development, seeing as Strangelove comes with Eva's tapes, and you also set up a monster hunting squad with Chico. The only downside is that things do become a tad repetitive. They didn't add any new locations aside from what's already there in story, and some of the ultra bosses are mucho sponge no bueno. But anyway, the game essentially breaks away fully from its Metal Gear trappings, either because people complained about forced cutscenes or because the dude just wanted to do something different, and becomes a full-on video game-ass video game. With very minor slivers of plot in the form of tapeages and escapages, until, Paz hijacks the giant robot, leading to the true ending that, even if it wasn't a dig, couldn't have really came out swinging with super serious stuff after...
A talking cat.
The fourth wall, the narrative, the red line, or the suspension of disbelief had already shattered, so things had no choice but to get stupid. And in that, it's honestly pretty fucking hilarious. Until you realize that the next major game had to somehow build off of this shit. But more on that in Act 10. Meanwhile at E3.
Welcome to the 2010 Konami E3 press conference.
Man, I feel like this whole thing sums up the current state of Konami pretty well. Nervous, awkward devs who may or may not have seen any daylight for months, forced to dance and speak English for an audience of cynical game journos. Like fuck their comfort zone. Fuck whatever loving presentation they have planned. Fucking dance, monkey, dance!
Hi.
Yes.
Duck Fuji holds his own though. He commands that crowd.
My name is Tak Fuji. I'm a lead producer in the 99 Nights 2.
Shame his game wasn't exactly amazing, but I'll totes give it a fair shake at some point. Better be extreme though.
This is an extreme hack and slash title. Not funny.
Memes and somewhat depressing undertones aside, in any case, it was at this E3 conference that they showed off a really spiffy new trailer of Snake Ruff in a jungle with all sorts of wacky camera bullshit going on. MGS3 for the 3DS is what it would be, you see, co-developed by Hexadrive, a Japanese shadow company, and the studio behind the Chris DLC for RE7, HD ports of Rez, Okami, and Final Fantasy Type 0, and they even co-developed the third birthday with Squares, so that's neat. Kojima had his hands full, by the way. Peace Walker and Lords of Shadow may be close to done, but him and his team were already planning out plans for an action game MGS spin-off, the development of which was going to go swimmingly. So it's good that these folks could help them out, that's for sure. The 3DS capture card cost me like $700, by the way. So y'all better be thankful that I put in the fucking money, you goddamn cretin! Cinematically sneaking in like a solid gimmick and playing slightly awkwardly like a handheld boss, it's Naked Boy. Again, seeing as this is a mostly one-to-one port. Pretty much everything said about 3 in terms of plot, level design, atmosphere, and banter applies here just as much. And in regards to the 3DS editions, the lower screen is used for map and menu, which seems like kind of a waste at first, but actually streamlines shit pretty nicely. And while I have a 2DS XL that's not being privy to the 3D effects, I'm sure that Eva's boobs would have came flying out right at me if I did. Though, real talk, the models look fucking good. They're a bit jaggy, but certain surfaces like Snake's gloves or skin textures have a bit of a sheen to them now that adds a lot of dimension and vibrancy, as it does here with Snake's glistening wet body. I also adore the fact that they got the voice actors back for the DS-specific tutorial prompts.
Okay, here we go. First, open the survival viewer with the start button. If you select Cure, you can start the treatment.
Shit sounds like they recorded the lines at home with a fucking headset, and I love it. It's just so jarring and stupid. Controls, though, take some getting used to, as the face buttons do camera, the shoulders do punch and shoot, weapon and item switching is on the touchscreen, and the D-pad do that too, but also contextuals and le duck. Basically, it controls literally exactly like the PSP version of Peace Walker, which I had left undiscussed until now, seeing as everything I could have said about the controls there also apply here, where they actually apply. Set Duck, by the way, has seen a big improvement as you can actually walk with it now, which is a bit of a game changer, not gonna lie. Shit adds an elegance to the sneaking that the original didn't have, in that you can actually feel super covert and are able to see your surroundings much gooder. They do make it far less audio-driven and a fair bit faster, but I kinda don't mind an easier, arcadier version of Metal Gear Solid 3 in which you aren't stuck between the two extremes of sitting in a log for 10 minutes and literally killing every man. And also, as I alluded to, being able to camo and food with the touchscreen saves a lot of time spent pausing. Which could be a big thing if you're one of those people who got super fussy about that. I wasn't, as to me it always kind of fit with the slower paced nature of the game overall, but given that the sneak is quicker here too, it's a fitting change either way. Also, being able to turn things like suppressors on or off with the tap screen is pretty neat. Equally fitting is the newly found and super generous third-person aiming. Face button aim is quite jank, you see, so not needing to be super accurate due to the big reticle was for sure a good call. Not to mention the auto-aim function similar to MGS1 that completely and utterly breaks the game and its boss fights. It was absolutely not designed with this in mind, as Snake aimbot locks on to just about anything with laser accuracy, so something like Ocelot Standoff, which was entirely built around quick reaction time and good aim, now turns into press button to shoot and win, which is kind of hilarious, not gonna lie. Less hilarious are the camera controls, the monkey-ass frame rate, and the blur that vaselines most of the jungle detail into one big green mush. But in that, my PS1 graphics argument that I will often use applies here too, being that neat details will generally stand out more in a more lower detailed environments. Shit gets this tangible, handcrafted vibe to it when geometry or textures are more simple, so this wee birdo is impressive, in much the same way that Silent Hill's bizarre gore fans or Crash Drippy Drips are. It sticks out, I guess, and looks great given the limitations. All of that said though, this is one great-ass port. It certainly could have ran better, but the changes in gameplay made it just different enough that the awkward and odd controls gave way to a new style of play that, in my opinion, is just as cool as the original in its own right. Broken bosses be damned. Hell, some would even consider this to be the definitive version. I don't, as different doesn't really equal better to me, but if you prefer more functional stealth mechanics over less able Rambo time, then I can certainly see why you would. Either way, it is also still exactly the same as the masterpiece it was built upon, so of course this sold fucking billions and redeemed the Metal Gear Solid name. Right? Well, Peace Walker already sold very poorly, only selling about 500,000 in Japan and fucking 50,000 in the US, which was less than even Acid sold, and 3DS raked in way less, only pawning off a wee 390k worldwide. Lords of Shadow, though, aka Kojima's bitch child, actually ended up topping the highest sales of the entire Castlevania series up to that point. Was it because of Kojima's name? No. Was it because it catered to trends? No. Or was it because it was on platforms people actually fucking owned? Yes. Yes, it fucking was. So maybe we should port Peace Walker to the PS360 and like make the next Metal Gear on consoles, but also like make it an action game. This will go very well, you guys.